Hello and welcome back to my channel, Postcards from My Golden Years. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to look below and check the subscribe button. And if you'd like to be reminded every time I upload a video, click that little bell. And so let's get started. Today I'm going to talk about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, often referred to as BHRT. Let me start by saying I'm not a doctor, and I am not here to give anyone medical advice. The topic I'm going to talk about is purely from my own personal experiences. It is based on the path and the journey that I took in the field of bioidentical hormones, and it should not necessarily be the same journey that you follow. So, before we go any further, I just want to make that clear. The only person that can assist you on determining if bioidentical hormones are right for you is a doctor who specializes in them and does the appropriate testing work. Okay, so that being said, let me talk about my journey. Years ago, back in around 2004, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 0, DCIS, which means that the cancer had not broken through the ducts of my breast. And as a result, I ended up having a lumpectomy and then 8 weeks of radiation. I was then put on a medication called tamoxifen, and tamoxifen had terrible side effects as far as I was concerned. I immediately gained about 10 pounds from the tamoxifen, and less than a year later, I developed a medical situation in that the endometrial lining of my uterus was starting to get so thick that my OB/GYN told me that she was very concerned. I have had a long journey on my path of using bioidentical hormones. And let me just tell you where I began. Years ago, as with most women, all women, I was going through postmenopausal symptoms, night sweats and hot flashes and, well, the typical problems most of us suffer. Around the same time, I ended up having to have a hysterectomy, complete hysterectomy. And she felt that this was a side effect of the tamoxifen that I had been on. So I asked her for a hysterectomy. I asked if it was unusual for a woman to ask to have everything taken away. I had already gone through breast cancer once. Fortunately, that was caught very early. I didn't want to have to worry about any other kinds of cancer. And the fact that she was telling me that the thickened endometrial lining could hide other cancers kind of scared me. So she agreed to a complete hysterectomy. And while I was recuperating from that hysterectomy, I was doing a lot of reading about hormone replacement therapy, because your body is no longer producing hormones in the same way once you go through menopause. In this case, it was a chemical caused hysterectomy or chemical caused menopause. So one of the books that I read was by Suzanne Summers, who also she is not a doctor, and she doesn't give medical advice, although a lot of people misunderstood her books thinking that's what she was doing, but really she was just advising people that this is what she did, this was her journey, and that everybody needs to think about whether it's a journey they would like to pursue. And in the back of her book, she listed a bunch of doctors all over the country who specialized in dealing with bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And so I pulled a name from the back of her book, and I called one of those doctors. And I went there for a consultation, and that started my path, my journey with bioidentical hormones. Now, the doctor that I had selected specialized in anti-aging medicine. He was a member of the American Association of Anti-Aging Medicine. And he was very, very thorough. He gave me all the information that I thought I needed to know as far as deciding whether bioidentical hormones were something that I wanted to pursue. He did complete blood work. He also did some testing using my hair, using my saliva, so that he could make the best evaluation on the state of my hormone levels. And so he tested things like my thyroid, he tested my estrogen level, progesterone level, testosterone level, my DHEA levels, and there may have been other levels I don't recall off the top of my head. And then based on that, he prescribed bioidentical hormones, and I was taking a form of estrogen, a form of progesterone, and a form of testosterone. A lot of people, other doctors, I should say, who are not specializing in the field of bioidentical hormones or anti-aging medicine, sort of poo-poo the idea of taking bioidentical hormones. I use bioidentical hormones because they are made from natural products. Years ago, and this probably still exists, you could get hormone replacement through pharmaceutical companies, and it turned out that they were making the hormones from the urine of pregnant horses, mare's urine. It's a little scary, and as a result, women were having heart attacks, they were having blood clots, they were having all kinds of problems. And so doctors who were not knowledgeable in the field of bioidentical hormones, hormones that are made to replicate those that your body produces, those other doctors, they were totally against bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And years ago, my general family doctor, when I told him that I was seeing this specialist for hormone replacement, he told me he could not be my doctor anymore unless I went off of those bioidentical hormones. It was very surprising to me. He was not even interested in calling the doctor that I was going to discuss the therapy. So in the end, I switched family doctors. So the prescriptions that I was getting from that very first doctor and that I get from my current doctor, they're all made at the compounding pharmacy. So they're basically made to my doctor's specifications for my needs based on what my hormone levels are. And this is great. And I'm using creams and pills, and I'll talk a little bit about that, a little more about that as I continue with it. Probably one of the major reasons for supplementing with bioidentical hormone therapy is to improve your quality of life. If you don't want to suffer night sweats and hot flashes and falling hair and drying skin, these are all things that the bioidentical hormones help to improve. There are many benefits. Now, when I started looking at hormones, some of the symptoms that I had were the hot flashes and the night sweats, and I was dragging, and I had foggy thoughts, or not foggy thoughts, but I had what I call foggy brain, and I just didn't feel great. The other issue I had was libido. I had a low libido, and I guess it happens to many of us, most of us probably, where we long for the libido of our teenage years. And I had heard and actually read when I did research, that testosterone was the cure for that. And so when I went to my very first doctor to talk to about bioidentical hormones, you have to be very honest with the doctor. Typically they'll give you a checklist, or they'll maybe even just ask you about various symptoms that you're having, things that you're suffering from. And it's very good to be as honest as possible, because at the end, you want to feel your best self. And so you should not feel embarrassed to talk about vaginal dryness or lack of libido or painful sex. These things are all normal issues that happen during menopause. And taking bioidentical hormones is a pretty good cure, in a manner of speaking, to help all of those things. So early on, when I first started with these and I started taking testosterone, my sex drive was off the charts. And unfortunately, at the time, I was married to someone who did not have a matching sex drive, which created a little bit of a problem. And he was not willing to go and have his hormones checked. So there was a little bit of an unbalance there in libidos. However, for me, it was great to have a libido that was just as I remember it back in my 20s. And it was very sudden, within days of starting to take my testosterone for the very first time. It was night and day. I wanted to have sex all the time. And so just giving you a little heads up on that, if that's what you're looking for. Some women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they're done with having sex. I'm not dead yet, and it's something that I enjoy. Fortunately, I'm with a husband now who has a matching libido, so it's not an issue. It's a good thing that I am taking the testosterone, because if we had met and married years ago, I would have been the one who really didn't have an interest. So that's one of the great benefits of taking testosterone. Now, it doesn't always stay the way it was when I first started taking it. It's like that with that great intensity, probably for me, it was maybe the first few months. And then it gradually sort of waned to a moderate level, comfortable level. And basically now, if I just think about having sex, the libido is there. Whereas prior to taking bioidentical hormones, if I thought about sex, I'd have to really work at having any kind of interest. So there is that. So basically the testosterone gives you your libido back. And that was one of the best things. In addition, taking the which is a form of estrogen, a safe form of estrogen, that takes away the hot flashes, the night sweats. There used to be days before I was taking hormones that would be very emotional days where I would cry at commercials. And this has, the estrogen or Bias that I take has toned that down. As a matter of fact, I can tell when my estrogen is high on any particular day because I will be emotional, overly emotional. And my test is to put on a commercial. And if I'm crying at commercials, I know, I need to like lower my estrogen levels just a little bit. So here's how the process typically goes nowadays. About every 3 or 4 months, my doctor gives me a lab order to take to the nearest lab to have blood drawn. And they're all the same routine tests, and he's basically looking at my hormone levels so that he can see what I need, what I don't need, where any changes need to be made. And then a few days after I have the blood work done, my doctor will call me into the office and we will review the blood work so that I understand what the levels are, what things I need to do, what things I need to change, or if everything's great, he will give me refills on all of my prescriptions. And then I take the prescriptions as prescribed. It's pretty simple. Because he accepts Medicare, he processes my office visit through Medicare and my supplemental plan. The blood work is covered through Medicare. I've never had a problem getting Medicare and my supplemental to cover all of the blood work. So basically, I am paying probably about $200 every 2 months for these 3 prescriptions. I also use a tube of another estrogen cream that is inserted vaginally, and that basically helps with vaginal dryness so that I never have painful intercourse, and it keeps sex very enjoyable. So I use that 2 or 3 times a week, and it's a godsend. It really is very, very helpful. So these are all things that you might want to consider discussing with your doctor. And as I have mentioned at the very beginning of this video, I am not a doctor. I am not here to tell you what to use. I'm simply telling you what my journey has been, what my path has taken me on, how my doctor works with me, and that I am very happy that I went on the Bio-Identical Hormone Therapy. Over the years, I have changed doctors a few times. I've moved a few times, and each time I moved, I switched to another doctor. On occasion, I may not have been happy with my progress with a particular doctor. One of my biggest concerns has been, as I got older, gaining weight. And bioidentical hormones, if your hormones are balanced, should make it optimal for you to be able to reduce your weight. And for a long time, it was working great for me. Years ago, not so many years ago, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, one of the doctors that I had switched to was providing bioidentical hormones in the form of a pellet. And I think it was called a BioT. I think that was the brand name, BioT pellets. And they would inject a pellet in the upper butt cheek, for lack of a better term, just below your hip. They would inject a little tiny pellet. They would give you 1 estrogen and 1 testosterone. And you would keep them in, and they would last about 3 or 4 months, and then they would start to wear off, and then you would go and get another injection of these. Unfortunately, when I started with those, I gained probably within about 3 months' time, probably 8 or 10 pounds. And the doctor had told me initially, it's just a temporary thing, it'll fall off. It's just your body getting used to it. But it turned out that the strength of the hormones that I was taking was too strong, and they had given me the weakest prescription of those Bio-T pellets. So I was sort of stuck. There was no way to adjust it. And that is one of the disadvantages for those of you exploring different alternatives. That's one of the disadvantages I found with the pellets. You can't regulate your dosage. Once you get used to the way your body feels, if you're having a good day or a bad day and you're not using pellets, you can raise or lower the dosage of your creams or gels accordingly, so you feel better on any given day. But with the pellets, when they inject them, they are there, and if it's too much, you simply have to deal with all of the side effects and feelings, good or bad, until that pellet wears off. And in my case, I was so unhappy with the pellets. Even on my doctor's advice, I went and had them done a second time because he told me, don't worry, by the time the second one wears off, you will have lost all of that extra weight. Well, that didn't happen. And so I switched. And when I switched to my next doctor, who did not use pellets, thankfully, that doctor would not prescribe bioidentical hormones for me until the Bio-T hormones were totally out of my system. And it took almost a year for those hormones to wear off and my levels to go down to a level where my new doctor felt comfortable providing me with a prescription. So you need to be very careful if you're on a journey trying bioidentical hormones. Be very careful if you decide that you want to try pellets, because there's a long return from that if you're like me. So anyway, as I said, I have switched doctors over the years, mostly because I was relocating to different parts of the state and looking for the next best guy. And over the years, I finally found the doctor that I am using. And he's a wonderful doctor. And he is very thorough and he's very knowledgeable. And he is very skilled in the field. He's a very intelligent guy. So I have a lot of faith and trust in him. Now I am taking, I need to get my glasses out. I am taking Biest cream, and I'm taking testosterone cream, and these come in a twisty bottle that you just simply twist to get a dosage out, and it's preset so that depending on the number of clicks I use, it gives me the right dosage of estrogen, or Biest rather, and testosterone. I also, before I go to bed every night, I take progesterone capsules, and they help greatly with the problem that I used to have, where I would first have a hard time falling asleep, and then I couldn't stay asleep. I would wake up numerous times during the night. So I generally take these about an hour before I'm ready to literally fall asleep. And then I sort of sink right into my pillow and off I go. If by some chance I wake up in the middle of the night, my doctor has said I could take another progesterone pill and it would just gradually get me right back into that very tired phase. I tend to not do that. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, I just sleep right on through till morning. early on, I mentioned that I had had breast cancer. And some very conservative doctors, I am told, I have not had that problem, but some very conservative doctors may be hesitant to prescribe hormone replacement therapy if you have a history of breast cancer. In my case, before I started with the bioidentical hormone therapy years ago, after my hysterectomy, I was still seeing an oncologist for follow-up visits. And I spoke with my oncologist, and his feeling was that since I had caught my breast cancer so early and that it was stage 0 breast cancer, which is the mildest, or if you're going to get it, this is the kind of breast cancer you want to get. Anyway, he said that he was sort of on the fence about bioidentical hormone therapy. He had read about them. He had other patients who had used them successfully, and he okayed me to use the bioidentical hormone therapy. He asked that the other doctor at that time contact him so that they could coordinate what at that time he was going to be doing, that other doctor that I was using was going to be doing. And so we continued, and my oncologist monitored my levels, and the doctor that I was using for bioidentical hormone therapy monitored my levels, and everybody sort of worked together as a team. And over the years, every time I've switched doctors, I fill out the required forms before you meet with them, and they, of course, they all see the breast cancer noted on the form, and the question always comes up. And so the doctors are all, I have not had one who freely said, oh, no problem. They have all approached it in a very conservative way initially. Now, the doctor that I'm seeing right now, I've been seeing this doctor probably for about 4 years. So he knows my breast cancer history. He also knows my levels and my health history, and coincidentally, he happens to be a regular family doctor. So I lucked out in finding a family doctor who is very, very knowledgeable in the field of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So because he knows of my breast cancer history, it's always there, and I'm sure it's always a concern when he provides prescriptions. He definitely would never give me prescriptions that he felt could put me at risk. And I've been very fortunate, knock wood, I've been cancer-free since 2004. So that is 16 years, almost a full 16 years that I've been cancer-free. And I've been taking bioidentical hormone therapy for 14 years and never had a problem. I have simply had wonderful quality of life. The only disappointment, as I mentioned, is that it hasn't been as easy to lose weight that I have gained over the course of aging, but I'm hoping that I'm going to find the secret to that in spite of my hormones. So, some other issues. People are probably interested in knowing, well, does insurance cover this? Insurance has never covered the bioidentical creams that I use, the estrogen and testosterone. At one point, I was using a doctor who was ordering the progesterone through Walgreens or CVS, and my insurance was covering it. Currently, I get all of this through a compounding pharmacy, and I'm on Medicare, and I have a Medicare supplemental plan, and that plan does not cover it. My plan does, however, cover my doctor's visits. Typically, I combine those visits with going to the doctor for some other health issue. And so I guess that's how we're able to get Medicare to pay for those for those visits where we happen to discuss my hormones. So that has been my path, my journey using bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I'm happy that I made the decision. I will probably be taking or using bioidentical hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my life. At some point in the next few years, we're going to be moving to France, and I'm starting to do research on what's available to me in France. I'm not sure that the same options are going to be available to me there, but I'm hoping that I will find the perfect doctor. I don't know if my current doctor will deal with me over the Atlantic Ocean. I would imagine that if I were simply in the United States, we could continue with doing telemed visits. The problem would be getting the lab work done and finding a compounding pharmacy that he is comfortable with that would create the right formulas for me. So I would say, before you decide to go down the path of bioidentical hormones, do the research, find a doctor that specializes in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Just asking your gynecologist or your general family doctor, you're going to be probably very disappointed, because most of them will tell you, oh, you don't need that, you're fine. Or some people, as I follow some groups on Facebook, and some people will say that they've asked their gynecologist for blood work to test all of their hormone levels, and the doctor is hesitant to do that, or will go ahead and do that and then just give them a blanket answer and say, yeah, it all looks good to me. You need to find a doctor who specializes in anti-aging for men and for women. Actually, I said that wrong. For women and for men, because men go through a sort of menopause themselves, and there are hormones that can benefit men as well. And testosterone is a perfect one. But you need to find a doctor who understands how to understand what your needs are, how to test, how to read your hormone levels, and somebody who listens. That is really key. It needs to be a doctor who will listen to what you're feeling, listen to what you want, listen to what you are trying to do for your own good health and well-being. I thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that I have provided you with enough information for you to decide how to pursue bioidentical hormone replacement therapy research. My first suggestion would be, as I mentioned before, go online to the American Association of Anti-Aging Medicine, and they have a tab on their website for providers all over the country, and maybe even all over the world, but I as far as I know, for sure all over the country, and find a doctor through them. Also check with your insurance company and see how much of this your insurance company will cover. As far as the office visit, as I mentioned, if you say to your insurance company, will you cover an office visit with a specialist on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy for a consultation, they're probably going to say no. But if you're going to that doctor for something else, like I'm using my doctor as my family doctor, so periodically we're checking my blood pressure and other health issues, it's very easy for him to include that in the cost of that office visit. So if you can be a little creative, or get your doctor to be a little creative, then maybe you can get your office visit covered as well. And then there's the cost of the hormones. It's about $69 for 2 months per item. So as I mentioned, it's probably close to maybe around $200 every 2 months, which is nothing. I've heard of a lot of people spending a lot more. And years ago, I was going to a doctor who insisted that you get everything from him at his office, and he was marking everything up significantly. So I was paying probably close to $200 a month for all of my hormones. Thankfully now I get it all all at the compounding pharmacy. Oh, and that's another suggestion on finding a good doctor. Look online, Google compounding pharmacies in your area. And this is how I found the doctor that I'm using right now. Call the compounding pharmacy, ask to speak to the pharmacist, and tell the pharmacist that you are interested in talking to a doctor about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and you want to know what doctors are sending the most prescriptions through that pharmacy. And I know in my own pharmacy, my own pharmacist's case, he has a lot of conversations with the doctors. So he knows which doctors are asking the right questions, which doctors have a really good understanding of how the bioidentical hormones are made and how the dosage is determined. And so it was very easy for him to give me the name of a couple of doctors in our area who were sending all of their prescriptions through him. And those were the first doctors I called. So that's another suggestion on how to find doctors. There are also some Facebook groups. If you go on Facebook and type in Bioidentical Hormone Group, you'll find all kinds of discussion groups. There are some nurse practitioners that monitor that site. There may even be some doctors who monitor the site. The people don't make it known what their profession is, but you can tell by the answers they're providing that they are in the field. So that's another good resource. So I wish you well on your journey. I hope that you find a good path to your health and well-being, and above all, good quality of life for the rest of your life. And if in the end it gives you a fantastic sex life, that isn't the worst thing, is it? So thanks again for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please click below, subscribe. I'm trying to build my channel. I need subscribers like you. And you can also help grow my channel by giving me a big thumbs up. The more thumbs up I have, it makes my video more popular, and it jumps to the top of videos that pop out on YouTube, which will also help me grow in the YouTube world. So, look forward to seeing your comments, and feel free, ask questions, comment. In my comments, I will put information, links to some resources that you may want to check out in your journey and finding out if bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is for you. Feel free to leave me comments. I welcome your comments. I look forward to them. If you've been doing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and you've got any great advice on losing weight in your mid-60s, feel free to pass it on. We've got to stick together and share those solutions to our mutual problems. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye.